talk about majorities in any country, we often make a mistake. We talk about the majority, as if there is one coherent group of the majority. Think about Syria. The majority are Arabs. Who are the Arabs? People in Damascus think the same way as people in Aleppo? People in the south of the country think the same as people in the east who live in the desert? The Arabs who live with the Kurds in the north, the same priorities than the Arabs who live at the coast? So I think one of the big mistakes we make is to think of a majority as one coherent group. And that's exactly where federalism comes in, or decentralization comes in as an advantage. Don't think of a majority as a homogeneous group. Think of a majority of a group of people that might share a common religion, a common language, a common identity. But they have different interests, depending on where they live, depending on their economic status, depending on their experience with other groups in the country, depending on their own personal priorities, right? So I think one of the big mistakes we make is often thinking of groups coherently. Federalism and decentralization kind of takes into account that groups have different priorities and needs depending on where they live. And if we think about federalism and decentralization like this, it doesn't really matter if you have majorities and minorities. What matters is you have a country where people live in different areas, and these areas have different needs. Because the people who live in Syria's east have very different priorities. They live in a desert-like state, they need better infrastructure, they need better schooling, etc., than people who live at the coast, who will be much more interested in having access to the Mediterranean, to good trade links, right? They will be interested in good relations with countries they trade with, than people who, for example, live in the north and in the Kurdish, mainly Kurdish populated territories, where there's lots of security questions, relationship with Turkey plays a key role. So if we think about it like this, then we can actually take the ethnic factor out and think about geographically, Syria and any country in the world are very diverse, and that's independent of where people live. So priorities depend on where you live in the country, and that's where federalism and decentralization come in, because they allow you, independent of what your ethnic group, your language, your religion is, to take the right decisions, where you live, what the geographic conditions are, what the economic situation is, what the people want, what are the priorities for the people at the time in that place. And that's the benefit for majority groups as well, that we go away from this idea of all Arabs in Syria have the same priorities. And we think, no, people in Damascus want different things than people in Aleppo or people who live in the south or the north of Syria, no matter what their ethnic background.